Hi guys, I hope you all can hear me. Welcome, a very good morning to all of you, and very happy December. The first webinar for the month of December is here, and it's going to be on the first component that you're going to appear for. By the way, this is Vidisha Vitlani, and wishing you all a very happy December. And I hope this month is as lovely and your scores are as lovely as this month. And we'll just start with the webinar for the listening bit. And the listening component, as you know, is the first component of IELTS. It's very simple. And most of the students are expected to get better scores in the listening module. You're expected that you get amazing scores. You're expected that you get the highest scores when it comes to this particular component. Now, see, there are a few things that stop you from doing so, and that's what we're going to discuss. So, basically, I have a PPT which is prepared for you, and naturally, because it's a PPT and it's a webinar, it's going to be slightly inconvenient. Else, I would have, helped you out with the audio bit as well, but that's not going to be feasible for me. But what we can do is, I'll take you through the theory bit of it, show you a little bit of practical things, and after that is done, after we're done with the webinar, you can come up with the doubts and put your doubts, put your queries in the question answer box, not in the chat box. Anything related to, in fact, I'll be more than happy if it's more of an interactive session, because honestly saying, there are a few tips that I would want to give you, but there are a few queries that I would like to solve as well. And what I realized over these webinars that I've taken is that towards the end of the webinar, when I do the question answer session, it's more fun. It's better because I get to know what you want and what is your take on this. So I would like that end session to be a little more interactive. Also, if you have any doubts relating to the listening posted at the end, I would be really happy to help you. At the same time, if you think that you have any other queries about IELTS which are very important, apart from the listening component, do post it. If we have spare time, which we generally do, I will definitely be more than happy to help you guys. Right. All right, I'm starting with the webinar. I'm starting with the PPT. Before the PPT, there are a few things that I want to tell you about listening, and it's something that is important. Now, see, listen. The listening component is the first component. The first thing that you go for exam and what you're going to get on paper is the listening component. If there's anything that you don't understand, if there's any word that you don't understand, please raise your hand. And yes, I would try to be a bit louder for sure. Now, am I audible? Okay. See, one thing that I would like to tell you is the listening component is the first component when it comes to the IELTS exam. So when you go for the exam, the first paper that you get is listening. Now, the best thing is that at this point of time, you're so fresh, you're in the zone to give your exam, so you're able to do so. This is one scenario. Second scenario is you're way too nervous. So first thing you have to, whenever you go for your IELTS exam, you have to eliminate that nervousness from you. Because unless and until you do that, you're not going to get good scores. Because your mind has to be well focused to listen to the audio, right? So that is what I expect you to do. Okay, now coming to the listening thing, we have 4 sections, we have 40 questions. Very important quintessential part for your listening portion is that you understand the accent. Not necessarily whatever you hear is going to be clear and audible to you, but you have to train yourself so that you understand this accent. And when you do so, that's when you get good marks in listening. There is no other rocket science. The listening module is simply you hear something and you write. So let's say if I'm taking this webinar and I ask you, please make a note of whatever points of I'm giving you, you'll be able to do so. Why is this? This is because of only one core reason. And what is that core reason? The core reason is you're understanding what I'm trying to tell you. You're understanding my accent because my accent is very clear, right? Because I'm talking in an Indian accent, which most of y'all which is very easy to understand for most of y'all, and most of y'all are used to this. So sometimes what happens is we're not used to accents which are, non-Indian or non-native accents. And our job is to get acquainted with it. The moment you're acquainted with it, you're definitely scoring above 34, 35, and then comes the bit where you have to reach a 9. So I love the listening module, but because students get an amazing score in them, like I have a lot of students who've scraped through a 9 in listening off recently, and I've been super happy and super proud about it. And I took a lot of tips from them also before coming here. I was like, what did you all do? How did you all manage? And what made you all get a 9? Apart from the routine practice. So that's how I made this webinar. And I'll tell you a few things that few exercises, a few games that I make them play in the class, which really helped them. And what they did as a part of their curriculum to score the 9. So let's go ahead with this. I'm starting with the PPT. Any doubts, please raise your hand. Most of the times I'll be answering this, answering your doubts and everything post your webinar. Okay. Right. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's on the listening component. Okay. Now, see, everybody knows the basic format of listening. For those of you all who are not aware of this, let me tell you about it. There'll be 40 questions in your paper, and there are going to be 4 sections. Each section is going to have 10 questions each. You will have 30 minutes to appear for the paper, and you will have 10 minutes to transfer for the answers. Now, understand one thing. 30 minutes when you're actually listening to the audio and when you're writing are important, because that's when you get your answers. But the 10 minutes when you transfer the answers are also very, 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 very important, because it is this sheet that is going to be checked. So I'll tell you about transferring the answers and how to go about it as and when. But yes, please do not underestimate transferring of the answers. Rather, I'd say that when you practice listening, don't just practice the test, please practice even transferring and get it checked by someone who's not you. Right. There is one correct answer for one mark, and scores of 40 are converted into 9 bands. So I think most of you all have this 9-band table, which you all know about. Okay, now there are 4 sections. So first is going to be a dialogue, second is going to be a monologue, third is going to be a dialogue, fourth is also going to be a monologue. Now see, section 3 and section 1, I'll tell you differences. The first section is going to be very, very simple. Understand one thing, this is a section progressive test. The first is easy, second is medium, third is difficult, fourth is also very, very difficult. Now what I feel is section 3 is more difficult than section 4. A lot of people do second me on this, a lot of people don't. But trust me, when you actually solve it, when you lose marks, analyze your papers and you'll realize you're losing more marks in section 3 compared to anything else. Now, this is because of a number of reasons, and we'll solve those reasons organically. So let's go for it. So the first section is going to be a dialogue. So let's say I'm talking to you, you're asking me what's your name, and I say my name is Vidisha, and you have to mention it. So it's going to be that simple. Okay. Second is a monologue. Now, monologue is basically a speech which is given by one person, and you have to mark accordingly. So generally, unless and until there is a map in section 2, or there are particular question types that you don't like, section 2 is also very, very simple. Now here comes section 3. Section 3 is generally a discussion or something happening on a particular subject or a particular assignment or a particular, most of times it's an assignment from a college, which is a little dicey, and that's when you all are scared, or that's when you panic a little, because the flow when it comes to section 3 increases a lot. Like suddenly the pace 1 and 2 is something that is very, very relaxed and very, very composed, and when you come to section 3 it's like going on a full pace, and you can't adapt to it, and that's when you lose marks. That's at the same time you're focusing on 2 3 different voices, and you're trying to gather all sorts of information. So that's not working as well. So you have to be very, very careful. Now, once you're done with section 3, you come into section 4. And section 4 is one thing that it's a monologue. The toughest part of section 4 is section 4, because by the time you're all focused, you're constantly listening to the audio for already around 20 minutes. And then comes section 4. And generally, first 3 sections have breaks. Like you have time to read question number 1 to 5, or you have time to read question number 5 to 10. But coming to section 4, it doesn't have break, it just goes on. So, it is slightly difficult. Also, it's a little slow. But compared to section 3, you will like section 4 better. Okay, moving on. What are the question types? The question types are answer the multiple choice questions. Second is labeling a plan or map or diagram. That means you'll be given a map, you'll be asked to label it. The third is fill in a form, that is more or less some that's generally in section 1. Complete a table, again that's more or less in section 1. Table completion is also very, very simple. Complete a flow chart, there'll be a series of events which you'll have to write, and give short answers. Here you have to be very careful that one word answer, is it a one word answer, is it a two-word answer? So be very, very careful with that. Okay. Again, how do I particular? There are 6 steps to solve the listening test. All of you are well aware of it, but let me go through this one more time. Um, the first step when you come to the listening test is you read the question. If you want to take a pen and paper and make jot down the things that I tell you to do. The first thing is read the question, and read the question. You have to understand the question to actually answer it. Let's say I'm asking you the name of the tutor, the name of the student, and both the names are called. So you have to understand the name of the tutor is asked, not the name of the student, not anybody else's name, not the name of the city. Okay, the date of rejoining and date of joining. So you have to understand that the first join date, not when you joined the next time. Then predict the answer. Now see, predicting the answer. Now what happens is students go too far with this. Let's say I'm telling you he's coming back from dash. So now in our minds we start assuming that some common noun is going to be spoken, like it's coming back from Ahmedabad, coming back from Bombay. What is coming back from a classroom? Or if he's coming back from from a particular city, not necessarily a particular name of the city. What if he's coming back from a country? What what is what is he coming back from depression? Like what if he's coming back from now? So most of the things, what it happens is you become too carried away, whether it's a proper noun, whether it's common noun. So let's say what I do is just predict whether it's going to be a noun, whether it's going to be a verb, whether it's going to be an adjective, whether it's going to be an adverb. Once you just predict that much, it's going to be more than enough. Like for example, time dash, I'm actually going to look out for a particular time. So all that is fine, but don't go too far when it comes to predicting. But yes, do anticipate few answers. Do try to do it. It really works. We generally are of the misconception that it doesn't work, and we generally ignore the step. Even when I sit to do listening, I hardly bother to predict. It's just like let the audio play and I'll write it down. But the moment I start predicting, the accuracy is 100%, and which works the best. Especially this works very, very well with table completion, with form completion, with flow charts, with section 1 and section 4. This particular step is very, very important. Obviously then listen to the audio and write the appropriate answer in your question paper. Step 6, transfer the answers. Transfer the answers is very, very, very important. You have to be careful of a lot of things. A lot of students have asked me before also, that is capital letter mandatory. I suggest write capital letters. You have to transfer in pencil. If you're not writing in capital letters, make sure that whenever you write a proper noun, you're writing you're going for a noun, proper noun, it's in capital. You're going for a common noun, it's not in capital. Okay. The next thing when it comes to transferring the answers is you're writing like 3 o'clock, and we have an habit of the timing bit. You have to be careful. You have to see, like for example, this $5, and your answer is $5, and dollars is given in the question paper. You don't write dollar symbol. You just write 5. Also, there are no short forms. There is no IE. There is no SEC for second. You have to write second. Okay. So please be very, very careful with that. You can't really lose out on this bit. Learn transferring of the answers more, because as I told you, the 30 minutes are important because you're listening to that audio and you're figuring out the answers. But the 10 minutes are more important because you're actually transferring the answers. You're jotting down the answers in the answer paper, which is going to be checked, right? So please be very careful. And this is for both receptive skills, listening and reading. Last time when I took the reading webinar, I'd explained you how to transfer the answers. This time also, I'm telling you, please be careful of a lot of tips, and don't lose out. When I check papers, whenever I check papers, what happens is most of the time students lose 2 to 3 marks in just transferring the answers. So imagine you losing out 2 to 3 marks. That's going to cost you 1 or 2 bands depending on the range. And I'm very sure none of us want to do that. So especially, there comes a time when students in their listening test start getting 35. They're scraping through a 35. And they're doing really, really well. But then at one point of time, what happens is that plateau phase comes. They can't go above 35. So you know what? When you get 35, that means you're able to receive. That means you're able to understand. at least 80% of the audio, which is far, which is very, very good coming to the IELTS listening. And the remaining 5 marks, out of which, trust me, 2 to 3 marks are lost in transferring. And obviously, none of y'all want to lose those 2 to 3 marks, right? I mean, you want to be very good at this. We can't lose on marks, even one. What if it's definitely going to cost you a band or two, which we don't want, especially when you know the correct answer. When you don't know the correct answer and you're losing out a band, it's absolutely okay. But when you know the correct answer and you're losing out a band, doesn't make any sense to me. So please be very careful in the transferring of the answer process. Okay. Now, one thing I would like to tell you is how to solve the MCQs. But before that, let me tell you how to go about what are the two key elements of their listening component. So the two key elements, what I feel, if you really want a 40, if you really want a 9, there are just two things that you have to focus apart from. Forget all the tips, forget all the strategies. Everything is very important and at its own place. But there are these two things. If you don't do well, you will not get a 9. First is your accent. You have to understand the accent. Now, for this thing, there are two approaches. I adopt two methods for making students understand the accent, and second is your understanding of the question. So, if you understand the question accent, you understand the question, you're naturally going to figure out the answers, right? So, if these two things are there, you're going to do really, really well. Now, how to understand the accent? It is a foreign accent. It is something that we're not used to. So, what is the thing? What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to get used to the accent, because unless and until we do that, it's not going to work out. It's a plain fact that all of us need to understand. Now, how do we do this? I have two approaches. One approach is your practice test. We have a lot of practice tests, Cambridge, there are lovely books available in the market, Cambridge, Oxford, official guides. We have a lot of tests on our tutorials as well. We have a lot of online tests. You can go through them. They're lovely tests. Now what there? You practice these tests. Once you practice these tests, we have another approach. Let's say I solve 10 questions and I have two wrong. I listen to the audio again, and I figure out whether I can get it correct or not. That way, I'm acclimatizing myself to the accent. That way, I'm getting used to the accent because I'm listening to it again and again and again. And when you listen to something again and again and again, you're definitely going to get used to it, right? So this is one method. Now, this method is very, very tedious, very, very boring. And I generally suggest this method for students who get below 25 or somewhere around 25 to 28. So for those who are able to scrape through a 6, can try this method. Because I understand that, the accent understanding in your case is only around 40%, is only around 40 to 50%, which needs to go as high as possible, which needs to be 100%. So then what we do is, also you can adopt the tape script approach. There is an audio script at the end of each test. Let's say you've solved it again. So once after solving, all this comes after solving. You don't read the tape script before solving. So let's say then you take the tape script, listen to the audio, follow the tape script. So again, in this way, you're going to understand the accent. In this way, you're going to get used to the accent, right? Okay, once you're done with that, this is one approach to it, and there is one more approach to it, which really works very nicely. I call this a holistic approach. Now, every day, when you till the date of your exam, or do all this 15, 20 days before your exam, so that you have good amount of time, let's say you're solving one test, which is mandatory per day, so that you are used to the question types and you're used to understanding the questions, you're used to understanding the accent. And the second thing what you do is you're supposed to really watch videos. You're supposed to, I know this is it's not for entertainment purpose. You can watch any video that you like, which is not of a native accent. And you know what, try to really watch something that you're not interested in. I get this again. Last time also when I explained your reading, I said the same thing. That please read something that you're not interested in. And we had a small banter about it as well. But this time also I'm going to tell you, please listen to something you're not interested in. Because what happens is when you watch our series and when we are into our genre, what happens is we really get carried away by the video of it and not by the audio of it. And my point here, my aim of asking you to listen to something is so that you understand the accent and not for your entertainment. So please do that. But you know what, I came across a student and he got a 9. His English was average and he scraped through a 9. So I asked him that, what did you do? He's like, you would not like to know what I did. And I was like, I want to tell my students what you did because, I want everybody to get a 9 and not just you. So he's like, you will not like it. I was like, okay, fine, just give it to me. I'm okay. And he comes to me and he's like, it's a top secret. I used to watch Game of Thrones like every day for 4 hours. And I was like, okay, this is insane. But it really worked for him. So, watching series, watching, any movies, watching, rather I'd say, restrict the timing of it because after a point of time, we start predicting things and which doesn't really work with me. So, give 10 minutes of entertainment to yourself. I would 10 to 15 minutes so that you're used to it. So generally, you'll figure out students, who keep on watching movies, who keep on watching series, are really good with this. The only reason is this, but then they miss out on accuracy because of their innate clumsiness or laziness, which you're not supposed to do so at the same point of time, right? So these are the two approaches to practice and getting acclimatized to the accent. The first approach is your test papers. When you go through it, you re-listen to it and you follow the tape script. The second approach that we follow is when you're actually going through the holistic approach, where you're indulging in a little bit of entertainment and understanding the audio. So these are the two things. Obviously, understanding the questions. The questions are going to be really, really simple. So you won't have a problem in understanding it, right? That's what I'm assuming. Okay. Uh, Coming on to the next bit. How do you solve the MCQ? So I realized this thing that most of you all have a problem when it comes to the MCQs. And the only way we can solve this is by practice. One very, very important element when it comes to the IELTS class is practicing and much, much more practicing. So generally before the exam, I advise students at least every day at least solve one listening because generally listening module is a little lighter compared to the reading, compared to the writing and speaking. Listening module is very light and if you're practicing well for it, you're able to scrape through real good marks. So please solve at least one test a day. In fact, this is generally I tell it for every component that when you're going for the exam, at least 10 days before the exam, solve each component every day. The reason is two things. First, your endurance is more because when you go for your actual IELTS exam, you're sitting there for like good 3 hours and a lot of strength and stamina is tested there. So at least when you're practicing beforehand, your strength and stamina increases. At the same time, you're acclimatizing yourself to the environment, you're adapting yourself. So it's more better. Second thing, what we really get to understand is you solve a variety of questions and you solve a variety of tests, and practice and hard work is any which way is the case. So 10, 15 days before the exam, I generally make my students practice each and every module every day. Just 2, 3 days before the exam, I start giving them a breather so that they're a little relaxed, they're very composed and calm when you go for your exam. Because when you're composed and calm for your exam, that time you can go for it. Also, we have an art tutorial group, so you can get yourself in there. There are a lot of people practicing, and last minute queries and doubts and things can be solved with it. So you can add that also if that helps. Right. Okay. One more thing. Now let's come back to the MCQs. So MCQs are something that all of us have a lot of problem with. Now there are two problems with MCQs. Firstly, they're majorly in section 3. As I said, section 3 MCQs are the tough because we are constantly listening to 3, 4 people. And suddenly, we first section is a little slow. Second section is again slightly higher pace, but then also adaptable. Suddenly, the third section is, it's time to change the gear, and most of us are slow in doing that. Our psyche is not that strong. So this is what happens. So we need to actually realize that when coming to the third section, the audio is going to be very fast, and there are 2, 3 people you're supposed to listen to. Again, people who are able to solve MCQs well, people who are really good at section 3 are people who have a very good span of attention. This is again one mind technique, which is the best when it comes to listening. So people who are very focused, people who have a good span of attention, they do really well in listening. Now, see, there is a reason to it. If you're focused, if you're, like you're focused, that means you're constantly listening to the audio, right? So if that's happening, then and then you'll be able to do so. What happens with most of the people is our span of attention is very low. So suddenly, we miss out on one line and then we realize we missed out on a lot of things. So we can't do that. We can't indulge into something like that. So please, for 30 minutes, I understand it's a long, long time. You have to listen to the audio, you can't even miss out on one line what they're saying. You have to gauge what's coming out. You have to understand the overall concept of the conversation and then go ahead with it. I know it's very difficult because most of us in today's world, we don't have that big span of attention. That is why, I tell you, please practice one listening test per day, because when you do that, you're going to be really good. Now, coming to the MCQs, the third bit. So, first thing what I tell them to do is read and understand the question, highlight the keywords. Now, see, what are highlighting the keywords? Keywords here does not mean proper noun. Of course, the proper nouns are something that you have to hear and figure out that this is a question. Then the keywords are the small, small words, all, majority, both of them agree on, both of them disagree on, both of them finally decide. So your both of them are deciding few things, but then finally is your keyword here. Both do they decide at the end, or what do both of them want to change? So one person who want to change this, second person who want to change something, third person is both of them finally agree to change the third thing. So that is what you have to focus. So all this will make sense only if you're understanding the axiom. If you get the link of the conversation, if you hear properly what I'm trying to tell you, then you're going to write it down, right? So again, everything revolves around this one word accent, which you really have to focus, which you really have to take effort to understand. So people in section 3 who do really well, there are people who actually understand 100% of what the conversation is. Now, the third tip I would want to give you is don't write the first answer you hear. You're not supposed to, like, the first thing you hear, it might change, it might vary. And you know how tricky the IELTS listening to section is. They actually tend to give weird answers. Like first time they'll tell something else. First date, for example, there's this MCQ where the three prices of hotel. $10, $20, $30. The first thing is like, initially we are going to book it for $30. Then the hotel manager agreed on $10, but I came like the hotel manager agreed on $20, and finally I bargained it to 10,000. So what was the price of the hotel that we paid? We paid $10. So there are some things like this that keep happening. So please don't write the first answer you hear. Okay, one more tip that I give my students generally is, see, generally in the listening bit, no, there is in any of the modules where RTS is concerned, I've always kept on telling you in my previous webinars also that paraphrasing is the most undervalued word when it comes to the listening bit, because it is paraphrasing that really helps. See, for example, let's say people are saying all of them wanted to do this, and the audience says majority of them wanted to do this. So these are things that mean the similar thing. Now, sometimes what happens is the audio is really, really quick. Now, in such a quick audio, we're not able to get it. It's not easy. We feel that, okay, you're not able to, your mind is not able to translate it, and things are going really fast. So what I do is I write things on the side. I write some information on the side. Majority agreed on this. Then when you have 10 seconds to check your answers, that time you can match it. It's easier. Trust me, this will get you accuracy when you're actually writing things on side. At least you have time to cross check, but make sure you're not just following and writing down the audio, because that does not work. Don't try and attempt like the dictation thing. Doesn't really go well. Just the main points that you think that it might be relevant to the answer, write it down at the sides, then match it. Really works. Okay. Be careful of contradiction words, but however is negative. They show a contrast. Then process of elimination works really, really well with MCQs. For example, sometimes they're saying this is not there, this is not there, A is not there, C is not the condition, and therefore B is the answer. Okay, please underline keywords in the question also. So a lot of students have this query that when they're going through MCQ, should they read only the question or the options? I would suggest you have enough time to read the question. So please even go through the options which are given inside. Just have a glance at the key tips which I have mentioned in the PPT. At any moment you feel I'm going too fast, or it's something that you don't really get, or something that you don't really following, please raise a query. I'll be happy to slow down my pace. I hope the pace of this webinar is fine for all of you. Right. Okay. We'll go ahead with this. We'll do a sample when it comes to the IELTS listening module. And okay, this is basically from Cambridge 11. This is a test 1, section 3. So some of you might have solved this. So let's take one question, and I'll tell you what the keywords are. I'm actually giving you this because I want you all to understand how do you figure out the keyword. First thing what I read is this: study on gender in physics, so something related to physics. I don't like physics. I hate physics. Any which way. So now here comes a topic which I don't like. That's why when I told you that please, keep on listening to things that you don't like. This is the reason, so that you actually have, a large aspect to it, that you're focused on listening anything which is boring as well. Um, Okay, let's see the first answer. The students in Akira Miyake's study were all majoring in. So now here most of the students, what mistake they do is they take Akira Miyake as the keyword. I understand students in Akira Miyake's study is something that you have to listen to, but here the keyword is all majoring in. So they will actually tell you three options. All the three options will be given, but then there will be one option out of these three which will suggest that they were all doing one thing. I have a tape script of this actually, so just see how they trick you. Okay. Uh, See, I got a little confused at first about which students the study was based on. They weren't actually majoring in physics. So physics is cancelled because they weren't doing it. So here the process of elimination works. Okay. They were majoring in what's known as STEM disciplines. That's science, technology, engineering, and math. So they were doing it. They were all majoring in this. Now let's see. Here there is something to trick you. Yes, but they were all doing physics courses as a part of the studies. So physics course was a part of the studies and not something they're majoring in. So again, don't come under the impression that whatever is spoken last is your answer. Okay, so please be a little bit careful in this. Did you get this? Here my keyword was all majoring. The moment I heard that something that this all is doing, that's my answer. Also, I could eliminate A and B. Firstly, A because they actually refused it, that they're not doing it. Second option was again a part of their studies, and the third option is actual answer. Now see, the aim of uh, Miyake's study was, so now aim is the keyword. So rather than aim, they can use the goal, the agenda, the purpose, investigate. Rather than investigate, they can use find out, was to figure out, was to conclude, was to deduce. So you're the key, the similar words here, the paraphrasing bit plays a very important role. So there are three options here. What kind of women choose to do physics? A way of improving women's performance in physics. Whether fewer women than men studied physics college. Okay. See, here it is. What the teachers wanted to find out. So find out is investigate. Yes. Okay. Was what they could do about relatively low level of women's result. So low level of women's result is going to be B, right? Because a way of improving performance. So the result is something. So result and performance are again keywords. Result and performance are again similar words. Right. Uh, the female physics students were wrong to believe. So you're the female physics students. So specifically when in the audio, some information is given about female physics students, that is what you're going to listen to. See, information is going to be given about all kinds of students, but here for this particular question, you are supposed to look out for what information is given about the female physics students and were wrong to believe. That means they did not believe, or they were not right in doing so. And what was this? See, but they were actually wrong. That's what the women thought, that they may. Okay, that's what the women thought, that made them nervous. So they did get poor results. That means men expected to get them poor results. They were wrong. No one was making any assumptions about female students. So your teachers marked them in an unfair way is nowhere mentioned. Male students expected them to do badly, so that means the males were making assumptions about them. So that's what is going to be B. Now see here what's happening is I'm reading the questions, I'm telling you what keywords are, and then we're going through the tape script, I'm reading out the tape script to you, and we're solving this. So it's relatively easy, it's relatively fine. But what happens in your actual exam is, firstly, I'm not there talking, so of course the speed is much more than what I speak usually because of the accent. At the same time, this is section 3 that you're doing by yourself. So again, please, your accent understanding plays a very important role. There's a very important trick is understanding the small elements. So here, had you, because you're able to hear me, you're able to do this. So I did this experiment with my students in class. What I did was I took up one section. All of them were cribbing and ranting to me. This is very difficult. This is very difficult. What am I supposed to do? So I took this. I gave them this paper, something similar to this, and I read out the tape script. I narrated the tape script. Now, coming from India, my students are used to my accent, obviously. They all got full marks. At the end of the test, we concluded there is just one thing that is stopping you from getting good marks. If you are able to understand and listen to me and get good marks, that means you're able to understand this. That means you know this. That means there is no other logic to it. The only thing that you need to ace up is in understanding the accent. Because if you understand what is being said, if you really understand what is being spoken, you're able to do this, right? So please do this. Please focus on. I know I'm, repeatedly telling you this one thing: understand accent, understand accent, understand accent. But trust me, leaving the tips and strategies ahead or leaving it besides, I would say this is a very important element and why all of us lose marks, right? Um, let's move ahead to maps. Generally maps is something that even I find it difficult because I let alone IELTS map. I'm very bad at Google Maps also. So, I am, it took me a long time to get this right. But now finally I figured out the way to do so. So generally, when comes a map, the first thing I do is I put left, right, up, down. Then I write north, south, east, west. And then, I see what all is given. For example, here I see that there's a road on top, then there's a farmyard, there's a footpath, there's a main road in the center, and then there's a main path, and there's a car park towards the left, and there's a side park towards the right, and then there's a barn. And I see where's a you're here. That means that's where the audio is going to start. And what I do is I don't really write, like for example, 15 is scarecrow. I don't really write next to it. I go with the trail. For example, they're saying that in the top corner of the car park, there's a scarecrow. Obviously, that's not going to be the possibility. The scarecrows generally would be somewhere in the farmyard, but yeah, or in the new barn, but not in the car park. But yes, in case they're just saying it's near the car park. So, what I do is I write SC there. And then later on, I, transfer the answers like 15 to 20, I would write later on because going up, going down, going up, going down is a mess. Already, we're seeing the map and, we're all very confused with it. And suddenly we're going, it becomes clumsy. It is generally very clumsy. It's a tedious procedure. Any which maps are something that utilize a lot of brain to figure out the right direction. So do that. It works the best. Also, what I do is I keep a pencil in hand and I keep trailing. Whatever they say, I let the pencil follow, and it works the best. Till date, I have never had inaccuracies in math, despite of being bad with directions. I've been able to scrape through this. So I always do this. I always take a pencil and I do it. Also at the same time, like, let's say for example, G, they're saying that it's a covered picnic area, so I write picnic. So now I know obviously 19 is G. So when I'm transferring the answers, it's easy. It's, I don't have to figure out what's down, and I don't have to go up down, because sometimes what happens is the audio is really fast. And while that audio is being played, let's say I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to match, and suddenly the other information, the other important information, which is maybe your answer, passes out. And also you look for the keywords, for example, across, besides, below. Across is opposite, kind of, besides, below, towards the north of this, towards the south of it. So that's why I like left, right, north, south, east, west. It's easy, you don't have to, like, you're not using any extra brain. You have to figure out where's left, where's right. Okay. One more thing I would like to tell you is, when it coming to map, pay very close attention to all the information that is given, because it's important. So again, when you look at the map, just be very careful, like how I decided, how I deduced that there's a road on top and that there's a farmyard below the road. There's a footpath that leads to the main path. There's a fish in a pool, and there's something between a fish and a pool. So when you're given that time, you can analyze all that. And plus, you can just figure out what is being asked. Generally, there are going to be 5 to 6 questions. For example, figuring out whether what I'm supposed to locate is a scarecrow, maze, cafe, black barn, cow picnic area, flea house. It's not going to be something way too difficult to remember, and it's there right in front of you. So this is going to be very simple as such. So I know taking a pencil and trailing it is a little baby step, but then if it's giving you accuracy, why not? It's it's ultimately not the question paper that is going to be checked. It's the correct answers that are going to be checked. Now see, one more very important part when it comes to the map is a lot of students have this problem is that the audio is quite fast. So again, your accent, if you get it right, you're able to do so. These are keywords for the map, like at the top, at the bottom, on the left, on the right, north, south, east, west, slightly south, above, below, opposite, front of. So, pay attention. Whenever they say these words, you can again trail with the help of pencil. Runs alongside is right beside. Adjoining is next doors. So please be very careful with this. Okay, now see, these are certain synonyms that I have actually figured out. So synonyms are going to be something like this. Like for example, we did one practical example. Like for example, the aim was, and they wanted to find out, investigators find out, aim is goal. So something like this, it means more or less the same thing, right? For example, it's going to be more prepared to learn, is going to be more willing to learn, tend to save for is going to be maybe, more likely to save for, or not. Like for example, tend to save for, maybe, one word is positive. Like for example, they're old, and then suddenly in your exam, like in your question paper, they'll be like they're not young. So not young is old. So they may do something like this also. So please be a little careful with that at the same time, right? See, then this is one more, high proportion of 70%. So again, majority, high proportion of all of them. So be a little careful. Keep a little bit of keywords in mind, like but, however, shows contrast, so you know that you're supposed to do something or you're not supposed to do something, right? Okay. See, these are the do's and don'ts, the last bit of my PPT. So these are the standard tips. Both UK, see, this is mostly for basically your IELTS exam, transferring the answers. Both UK and US spellings are correct. So that is your S and Z, both of them are correct. Correct spelling is required. If you can't spell the spelling right, it's going to be wrong. Even there is negative marking. Like for example, the answer is bottle and you've written bottles, it's definitely going to be wrong. So please be very careful with that. Okay. Again, a very, very important part is all formats for the dates are important, but generally, whatever they speak, that's what you're supposed to write. Abbreviations, like standard abbreviations are accepted. Like for example, KM is accepted. Then there is, second. But then I would say avoid abbreviations is better, because when you write abbreviations, that doesn't really work. So please be very careful with it, right? Okay. This is the end of PPT. I've given you a lot of uh, tips here. There's a site called IELTS Tutorials online, and you can get yourself registered there. There are a lot of free books there. There are a lot of free tests there. The webinars, like the pre-done webinars, are there. You can get online coaching as well if you're not located in this part of the city. You can register for some online coaching as well. The price of online coaching is mentioned there, and I think there is personalized and group coaching available in case you want to go for it. At the same time, there are pre-recorded webinars that I've done before. They're on media subjects, there's speaking, there's writing, there's reading, and all of them are there. All of them are uploaded. You can go have a look. And in case you have any queries, you can raise it on IELTS tutorials, and we will be very, very happy to help you. Um, so this is about listening. Again, I know I have been slightly repetitive in few things while telling you few things, transfer well, and then understand the accent well and stuff like that. But it's very important. That's the only way you can do it. And trust me, I have got results with that. I have had students getting 9, 8.5 in listening throughout my classes, and they've all done well because of this ranting. So if you listen to it, it's going to work for you as well. I would like to take some question answers if you have any. I'm sure you have a lot of queries, and just come up with them. I would love interacting with students at the end, and this is my favorite part, which is coming up. I've explained you all what is needed for listening. One thing very important for listening is practice, in which you really have to do so. So please do not, you cannot just because you understand the accent, you cannot be like, okay, I don't want to practice. You have to practice like really, really hard. As I told you, that there is one test which is equally important a day. And we have this group batches also, which are taking place for like 15 days. So in case you have exams coming up next month, or you're planning to attempt in January, February, you can go for your 15-day group classes, and I take them. So you would be, comfortable with it as well. right? So I start my group batches on Monday. So in case for those of you who want to enroll, who have exams coming up soon, can do so. Right, I would love to take up. Please put your queries in the question answer box. So if you do not, if you have any other queries, you can put it in the chat box. Okay. If the answer is a cafe and we write cafe like this, so it's fine, or you have to write a cafe. So all the answer keys I have seen, there's a cafe with an E. I generally tell my students to write it with the E. Cafe without that slash is also fine. You can get it correct. But since we know about this word, you can always have this. Can you suggest online resources to improve my listening skills to understand the American or British accent? To understand the American British accent, you have to listen to the accents, and there are a lot of ones available on YouTube. As I said, we have an IELTS tutorials online site, and there is plenty of material. Like you can study as much as you want to there, so you can always go for that one. Um, Hello, how is computer-based exam going to be different than a paper-based exam? Honestly, the computer-based exam has just been recently started and is there in the it's there just in a few centers. Here, I would like to tell you is that computer-based exam is something that you do on computers. IELTS has always been a PPT. So it's like you transfer the answers on the paper. So rather there you're going to type or there you're going to select with the help of the mouse. That's it. That's the only difference. Like here you're writing an essay, there you're going to type an essay. Speaking is with the examiner, then speaking is going to be recorded. Please put your queries in the question answer box and not in the chat box. The chat box is for other queries. IELTS related queries can come in the question answer box. Please, it's easier for me. Um, any questions that you want to ask? Where can I find genuine IELTS materials to practice online and offline except for Cambridge books? See, I'll tell you this thing. When it comes to the internet, you cannot rely on the sources. That's why I'm constantly telling you about the IELTS online because these are the tests that we as trainers have verified. These are the material that we have gone through. We have prepared on this material and then posted it. There are a lot of sites available on internet. Like there is umpteen number of sites and there are umpteen number of students who come to me and they're like, this is a 7-man essay and I'm like, I wouldn't even give you a 5 for this. So I don't want to sound rude or something like right here. There are some sites which are wonderful, which I love, reading personally because they're genuinely very good. They give a lot of information. I myself follow. But for that, you yourself need to have an understanding of what's right and what's wrong. So when I give online sites to my students, I check beforehand whether this essay, when I'm giving them a sample essay, I check beforehand whether this essay is worth it or not. And if it's not worth it, I wouldn't give it to them. So please, rather I'll say go for IELTS tutorials. That's for online. There are few online. Don't rely on YouTube. Anything that you see in YouTube is not correct. Get this straight. So there are a few reputed trainers on YouTube who are really, really good. You can follow them. Who have good views, who have good reviews, and they're amazing. I see their videos and even I love them. So you can go for that. Apart from that, I have. If you go to YouTube, if you have this online tutorial site, I've taken almost 10 webinars on a lot of subjects. They're on reading, they're on writing, task 1, task 2, band descriptors, they're speaking. You can refer them. They're like 1 hour sessions. So it's going to be a good classroom session for you. But this is for online. For offline, apart from Cambridge books, see, I believe Cambridge is the most authentic material you can ever refer. And personally, when I tell my students, I always make them stick to Cambridge. Apart from Cambridge, I would also like to, I like this, there's this book called Official Guide, which I really help them follow. We have this group called IELTS Tutorials on Telegram, and you can join this group. And this group has amazing materials also. Like every day, it's a group where students are interacting with each other, honestly. So every day, some of the other material is being shared all day long. So, you will have a good amount of practice. Also, students share their own reviews about the test. Once they go for the test, the recent questions are asked, a lot of discussions keep happening. So it's a nice group. You can come on it. It's on Telegram, it's not on WhatsApp because we have a lot of people in there, which is generally not supported by WhatsApp. So just download Telegram and there's this group called IELTS Tutorials. You can join it and you will have this lot of shared material. Are there any particular accents which are used in audio clips? Yes, there is American, there's European, there's British, there's Australian, there's New Zealand. People from New Zealand and Australia is similar. Now, see what happens is a lot of people focus on these minute details that they focus on American accent and Australian accents. And what I would say is don't really, don't. Your aim is not to understand what region that belongs to. Your aim is to listen to it. whatever it is, wherever it is, wherever a human is talking from, you should be able to understand this. That is your agenda. So a lot of students, they come running to me, this is an Australian accent. I don't understand. I'm like, how? This is not and then I'm like, first of all, it's not an Australian accent. You're not that competent to understand that this is an Australian accent. And if you would be that, competent, you wouldn't have, had a difficulty. So see, your agenda there is not to understand which region the accent is belonging to. Your region is to, your agenda is understanding the accent by itself. Any other queries relating to IELTS? I think, is it helpful for listening if you watch CNN and BCC channel? Yes, anything that you're listening to which you're not accustomed to, which does not belong to your own region is useful. In fact, my favorite show for, I'll tell you a very funny thing. So I tell my students sometimes, I make them practice a lot, and I'm sometimes, very mean as a trainer. So I, indulge in like hardcore practices with them, like do this, do this, do this. And what I tell them is, then, one fine day they're like, okay, now we're not studying anymore. And then I tell them, okay, watch a series. So I'll share this YouTube link of a particular series. So these days I'm really into a lot of, because of IELTS, I myself also watch a couple of them, and it's fun. So recently came across this nice series. It's a very old one, and I watch them all the time. So it's fun. So you can try, but then don't invest a lot of time in listening series and, entertaining yourself. I can do that. Students cannot. So, invest 10 to 15 minutes and whatever entertainment you want to, it's fine. I'll be cutting short this. So any more queries, just give them as quickly as possible because I want to wind this up. So listening module, like it's the easiest, but I would love if you like really practice. See, the best thing in listening module, so whenever people are like, we're doing listening and, we're into listening, the best thing is you can get an answer. You can get all correct. You just have to listen and write. It's just like a dictation that you've done in school before. It's just with a different accent. So when you're practicing the listening module, just practice with an agenda of getting an 8.5, getting a 9, and in a very positive way, because listening is the module is the most relaxing module, is the most fun module to solve compared to rest of your, compared to the rest of modules. And I'm very sure all of you all get very good marks in listening compared to other modules. So if that's the case, then please, really, when you're studying, study with full focus, study with full, aim, and that's when you're going to do. So I think, I hope you found this webinar useful. I know there are certain things that have been repetitive. I hope there are certain strategies that really, really help you. And I hope you benefit from this. You can also watch a recorded version of this seminar on YouTube. It's going to be posted on the IELTS web tutorials, as I said. So have a look. Also, I'll be starting my group coaching. Meanwhile, since Monday, I have my batches. So in case any of you all really want to go for it or really have an exam, if you want to sign up for that, that's going to be great to see you there as well. Have a very, very happy weekend. Have a very happy, I hope you all get amazing scores, and I hope you'll stick through a 9 in listening. Okay, signing off. This is Vidisha Vitlani, and all the best for exams, guys.